On the live stream, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for showing up so early, especially after big parties last night. I am delighted and honoured to be moderating this panel. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me first, and then we're going to get to hear more about these incredible women in the space, their journeys into Web3 Coalition, what women can get to learn, what companies can get to learn about inclusion from a gender lens, what communities can potentially do, and we'll also, of course, focus on how you can earn in Web3 Coalition. So, we're covering the sort of financial inclusion part. So my name is Richard Greenwood. I'm the founder of the Bigger Pie. I came into the Web3 Coalition space down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. For about 18 months, I couldn't figure out how to put it in. So my friend said to me, "Send me some money, download this word." I was like, "Yes, thank you." And they also said, "I'm going to do a startup, would you like to join?" So I had previously been having financial services companies with their social media, but social media had changed so much from when I started. Instagram, Facebook, and who Zuckerberg is doing, but I didn't really want to be supporting that industry. So I said yes to coming into this new world. And then when I was in that startup for a year, my eyes were open to the potential that this technology can bring to the world. And what I'm particularly excited about is talent is distributed, but opportunity isn't. And so we have millions of people across the world who are incredibly talented, but they're not given opportunity to exchange in an economy that can raise up their financial well-being. But we thought that the internet was going to democratize us. We thought social media was going to democratize us. And we've got 15 men who own over 50% of the world's global wealth on a planet that we're killing. So the technology isn't going to change anything unless we choose to build on it the solutions and the platforms. Solutions and the platforms?
Yep, better.
Okay, cool, thank you. The solutions to the platforms that will actually allow these people to be included. And how do we do that? We make sure that everyone is at the design, development, and deployment table, and that includes half the population who are female. So whilst I was in the startup, I had a look around, and women in this space are unbelievable. I'm not suggesting that the men aren't, I've just done research on the women. They have multiple degrees, they speak multiple languages, they have career histories that anyone will be so proud of, and then they're forging new ways in the space. So I was like, how can I hang out with these women? No way I'm going to try and compete with them. And so I said, when you're a woman in Web 3.0, are there things that we can do to support you? And the number one thing was, how can we more easily connect with other women? Because we'll walk into a space and we won't be able to find very many women. So let's do that. How can we connect with women across different sectors, disciplines, and industries? Because if we're in regulatory, we'll be on the regulatory panel, we'll know everyone, we will be meeting founders or builders, etc., etc. Then I've also done some research, and I cannot tell you how important role models are. People talk about bringing women and girls into STEM, but the graduation rates, as I understand it, is 35%. We are not seeing 35% in senior positions in companies. So I don't think we have a pipeline problem, we have a first ladder problem, that these women are graduating, doing all the work they're supposed to do, but they're not getting the promotion and recognition that they need. So blockchain, Web3 now is such nascent technology. Why don't we help these companies build right first time, with gender inclusion at the core of what they're doing, as opposed to having to change the culture that's already been established. So that's what we do with the Bigger Pie. And I get to meet amazing women. So, Yip, Mantha, would you like to be Mantha or Alex for this?
Mantha, that's my
Mantha.
Web3 name.
Layla, Rebecca, who I only had the pleasure of meeting just now, and Zerion are with us, and they all have different backgrounds. So we're going to kick off with an introduction of each one. Talk to us about your life pre-Web3, what you're in, each, and then I'll come around and we can expand on those questions. That's okay.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Very, very grateful that you spent the time to come here and listen to our stories. My name is Yi. I'm a co-founder at Unit Network, a layer 1 blockchain, with the focus to solve wealth inequity problem. And also very engaged with education. I've trained a few thousand people in basic blockchain literacy, because literacy is important in order to actually access and shape the Web3 economy. So we created these free programs to bring more women in, but also to bring everybody in who doesn't come from the crypto native industry. What did I do before Web3? I was a management consultant, I was an entrepreneur. So basically I learned how to scale products, I learned how to think strategically, help big companies create digital transformation strategies. And I realized somehow, we have all these good intentions, big corporates, because my job was to advise the CEOs of big financial institutions to think about how can they be like a big player and keep winning the markets in a globalized economy. And I realized we have all these big, good intentions to bring inclusion and diversity into our world, but somehow we don't have the right skills and the right tech tools. And then Web3 offers cost-efficient solutions to bring financial services to the underserved communities. So that is kind of a game changer. It's really what makes Mohammed Yunus work, for example, when he said social entrepreneurship is important. And he didn't have the means to really showcase this work. So I think now we are at a stage of history where we can all use technology in a wise way to do that. And the second thing, which is really important, is it's not only about intellectual intelligence, like rational intelligence and so on, but we've seen that emotional intelligence is equally important. So when I think about inclusion and diversity, I think we also need to have diversity of skills, and that requires rational intelligence and emotional intelligence. I'm happy to share more about the token economy at a later stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexandra Manthe, but you can call me Alex or Manther today. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm trying to get more to Twitter. It's the _Manther. I sort of fell into Web3. I don't know, I had a friend, and I feel like this is a common story. I had a friend who was like, hey, you can make money with JPEGs. It's like really cool. I'm like, this is cool. That seems interesting. My background in the Web2 space is primarily with expert networks and membership-based communities. So I was working for a long time for the largest expert network in the world. We had 850,000 industry experts in basically everything. Former head of Pfizer, everybody, all the way down to someone who packs fishing boxes every day. And what I was responsible for doing was keeping them engaged and excited, and then helping connect them with very specific, very targeted consulting engagements, quickly and efficiently. And I was working a lot on digital transformation and so on, and I loved the idea that technology can make your life easier, better living through technology, better living through chemistry or whatever. So I really once I realized that Web3 and blockchain was more than just sexy NFTs, or at least interesting looking ones, I became very interested and involved with some of these community management problems and getting the expertise and the interest and the opportunities connected. As Bridget said, it can be a challenge to connect people who are qualified with where the actual need is in a systematic way. So for the past, few months, I've been consulting on a number of layer 1 and layer 2 projects. I can talk a little bit about that. I was actually working with you guys on some permanent stuff, which you can also chat about, which had a strong diversity and inclusion focus in their grants program and so on. I had something else I wanted to say, but mainly I'm just excited you guys are here and fighting through the hangover. Yeah, I'm very excited about this panel. I think there's a lot to say.
Nice. Hello, my name is Layla Saeed. My journey here today began a few years ago when I was kicked out of my house and experiencing homelessness 4 days after I graduated college, and hadn't really had any time to figure out what I was trying to do with my degree. And really was just in a mode of pure survival. And it took me 3 months. I moved across the country to Colorado, here in Denver actually, and joined the AmeriCorps, working for a homelessness nonprofit, working to elevate the voices of people with lived experience, to help create change in a system that continues to systemically oppress and marginalize the voices of the people that it is attempting to serve. I've been doing that work for several years, and I had a friend who brought me to MCon over the summer. It's crazy. It was only
No,
it was
I'm
only
also with MCon. Sorry, I was gonna thank you.
only in September, which seems like such a short time ago, and I felt so out of place. But I've been a lifelong combater of imposter syndrome, and I told myself, just be yourself. Speak about what you know. Don't pretend like you know anything about crypto or blockchain. Speak about what you see. Speak about the people in the room. And I just noticed, I knew Web3 and blockchain technologies were trying to create a system that would be more equitable, that would be less oppressive, that would be more accessible. And I entered a space that was 90% white men. And that did not sit right with me, because I knew that the system that they would create would be one that they would benefit from. So I vocalized that concern. And was lucky, or I guess fortunate enough for the the person I was talking to actually hear my concerns. And I said, if you know the person, someone in charge, let me know. I'll tell them the same thing. And he brought me to Zerion. And I said the same thing to her. And she brought me into her network and gave me an opportunity to create my own voice within a space so that I could do the same for others. And incredible things have been happening, the past few months for me in this conference. I've just been meeting so many incredible humans of all genders, all types, really just trying to create spaces where people could be themselves, people could raise their concerns, and people could collectively create a system that works for everyone. And I think that's something that's possible, but you need to be inclusive and intentional about the representation at the room. Everybody needs to have a seat at the table for these conversations to be happening, so that we're not recreating the racist, sexist, colonialist systems that we've been sort of operating off of for centuries. So my work now is focused on helping Web3 communities be more inclusive and accessible and equitable, but also to try to create solutions for homelessness. Specifically in Metro Denver, my organization coordinates the regional approach to ending homelessness in 7 counties of Metro Denver. And it is my goal, and I've been working hard at this conference, to get funding from people who are interested in investing in housing and supportive services, so that we can close the gap on resources, so that my nonprofit can match those resources to people experiencing homelessness, and hopefully create a system where homelessness is a rare, brief, and non-recurring event in someone's life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with this amazing group of women and this amazing room of people who came at 9 a.m. to listen to us talk. My name is Rebecca Van, and I am from South Africa. That's where I grew up and spent the majority of my life. And I'll start with Bridget's first question of what I was doing before Web3.
And the reality is that I wasn't doing much because I've been working in Web3 and crypto for the last 5 years. I found out, or got into the rabbit hole, as they say, when I was a freshman in San Francisco. And I kid you not, I got into crypto because of free pizza. So 2017 was a bubble happening. I'm living in downtown San Francisco. I'm a broke college student. And the cool thing about hackathons is that there's free food, always. So my friends and I would just DM each other, hey, there's a event happening at 6 p.m. There's going to be free food. Free food rolled into free furniture and free all sorts of things. It was a real life hack. But obviously, I got interested in what people were talking about. And I was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, kind of in the middle of where everything's happening. And I don't discount the role that that had in the opportunities that came later. I then worked for one of the largest crypto exchanges in Southeast Asia, based in Japan. But 2018 happened, and there was a bear market. And even though there was a bear market and people were doing all sorts of crazy things for ICOs, most companies were still spewing out this weird marketing rhetoric on banking the unbanked, democratizing finance, and revolutionizing everything with blockchain. And I think, like everyone here, it was just a slow internal cringe of what on earth are we doing? And it was around that time that I heard about an organization in Kenya called Grassroots Economics that was applying blockchain technology and doing experiments in universal basic income with crypto in marginalized communities, so in rural areas, slum communities in Nairobi. Long story short, I got on a flight and ended up doing work in Kenya with this organization because it was really important to me that I was a part of doing something that felt like it was benefiting people on the ground, not whales, not people who already had access, the people who otherwise would not be put in contact with this technology. So that's the backstory. Today, I lead the growth team at Zerion, which is one of the largest DeFi aggregators. So if you want to track your portfolio, invest, we are a non-custodial and a much better Robinhood or Coinbase for DeFi and for everyone. And alongside this, I've continued the research that I do in community currencies. And I think similar to everyone here, I've just had this sense of, I've walked into the conferences and been the only person who looks like me in the room. I've had that experience so often. And around June last year, I started thinking about this of, even if we get people at the table, even if we get people at the room, is that enough? And, when we think of inclusion, we tend to think of who's in the room. But I really like the focus of the topic today because it's not just about who's in the room, it's about who's making decisions, who is getting financial value, what does the distribution look like there, and how do we make sure that that information is accessible and that people are incentivized to care about it and to share it. Not just because it looks nice optically, but because we will not be successful at what we're claiming to do if we don't practice that inclusion in a very, very real way. That will take effort and will take sacrifice because it requires us to do things differently. So one of the things I'm really excited about now is exploring how we bring in data that is related to ESG metrics, right? So not just diversity and inclusion in leadership teams, but also things like climate impact. I think that so much of what we're seeing in crypto is a shift in narrative around money and the way that we relate to money, and realizing that the way we spend our money, the way that we make money rarely matters because there are always going to be externalities. And we have, for the first time in human history, the ability to do that because of programmable money. And that excites me, and that's why I still work in this industry and why I'm here. So thank you.
Wow, yay! Okay, I'm so thrilled by all of you, so thrilled. Good morning. My name is Zerion. My experience in this space is right in the heart of the DAO ecosystem. So sometimes I feel like it's a blessing and a curse that I have been placed in DAOs, because DAOs are collectives of individuals working together to reach a common goal. So what harder place to be a marginalized person as in a collective that is trying to form consensus, and where your voice needs to be not only like heard, but understood, valued, included, not erased, not whitewashed, not mansplained, not footnoted. A lot of times when I share my wisdom, somebody in the chat, whose name usually starts with like doctor, will be like, oh, in this theory, this is true, what Jovian has said. And I was like, don't take my wisdom and put a man's footnote on it. That wisdom I gained through life experience, observation, emotional presence, and I just said that to you. So there's many ways in which being in a DAO allows my voice to be heard and not heard. For one, it's very heard because it's a smaller group, right? So if I'm pretty loud and speak pretty clearly, people can actually hear my voice. Whereas if I yell like on the street, like change the president, like it doesn't really do anything, right? But like if I'm in a reasonably small DAO, like 30 people, and I'm like, oh my God, like we need a better onboarding system. Like people will be like, oh, I heard something, you know? And like then we can start working on that onboarding system. But even though like I'm a piece of this space, I'm often the only female or one of two. And I'm often in a role that is associated with community or emotional intelligence, and not data, and not science, and not technical, and for this, in this way, my voice is marginalized even though it's there. People ask me for data constantly to support my observations. And I'm like, do you want to see inside of my brain how much data is in there? Like, I just computed a lot for you and told you what the next step is. But you don't trust my voice because it's feminine. It's based on empathy, observation, caring, conscious study of others, staying up at night thinking about everyone who didn't make it through the onboarding, and strategizing all night long about how to make the onboarding better. But you want data that tells me what? So in DAOs, the oppressive systems are dragging in right on your clothes. It's like they're stuck. So you come into the DAO and you're like, we're gonna make the world better. Like, yay, inclusion, equity, and it's true. My first day working in a DAO, I owned a share of that DAO, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a shareholder. I had co-founded projects before and been edged out of equity. Like, it's insane how much I have been like ridiculously oppressed, manipulated, and excluded. But my first day in DAOs, I had a share, and I had voting power, and I was contributing. But what happens over time is that you still get spit out. And that is something that is why I'm here. And it's why, even though I have lots of interests in Web3, that's so interesting, I've decided that until we can not spit out these other wonderful perspectives and we can start to hold space for them, just let them be there. Let someone else's version of intelligence sit there and don't ask for a report on it. Just take it, just let it sit there. And until we can actually practice inclusion as human beings, as individuals, I'm just gonna stick with this. This is my area, so that's it.
Super well said, and 100%. I can't empathize with you more on that. I think it speaks to what you were talking about before around like the different types of intelligence and logic. Since this is a panel on financial freedom, we have a couple of numbers. I think part of it. Let me back up. So I think when I'm talking to women who are interested in crypto, who've made through my like 3 a.m. oh my god, this is so amazing, we're changing the world speech. A lot of them don't come from a technical background, and a lot of them end up in more of the EQ, community management type roles. And what I found both in the startup community, but it's particularly exacerbated in Web3 and in the DAO space, is when you have, say, a founder who has a really technical perspective, you're often asked to just quote unquote prove it with your observations. But not only that, they don't know how much things cost. So, you know, I was talking with the founder who, technical guy, nice guy, he wanted me to come in and build a bunch of different programs from the ground up for onboarding, for community management, really complex, challenging stuff from the ground up, creating dashboards for it so I could improve my theories and observations. I like data though, so like, that's fine. But we're talking, we have some interviews and stuff, and I was like, so, you know, you want to pay me for this? You know, because it's like work, and I would like to be paid for that. Big tech ladies don't work for free, which actually is a big tip. I'm being flippant, but like, please don't work for free. Men don't do that generally. And I was like, so what are we talking for this? You know, similar roles are going for like 100, 150K. And the marketplace goes, oh my god. Well, I thought maybe like 30K.
Whoa.
This has happened to me more than once.
Yep.
This has happened to me more than once. And so when you want to talk about not just not being heard, it's not being valued financially, and it's kind of it can be a really challenging space sometimes to educate founders. Like, actually, these skills are not only valuable, they're valuable according to the market. And yeah, you can pay someone $30,000 a year to do this for you, but they won't have the experience that I will, and you're going to run into a lot of problems. So that just really resonated with me. But I've had that happen, I think, at least 3 times. So I start asking early, what's the salary expectation for this? And I think that's a good tip overall.
Thank you so much. Can I just ask all the women who feel as though they resonate with what's been said to raise their hands? Is anyone not raising their hands? No. Okay, cool. Does it resonate with the men in the room? Cool. So I think that we could talk all day, but that's what the day's for, is other people's voices. And there is the financial inclusion element and how we can get involved. So there's a couple of things that I just want to say from my perspective. A lot of people come in through conversation, but now we've had various Web3 elements in the medium, or they can come in there in their own. I learn best through communities and conversations. And what we have in the bigger pie, I'm working with people like Panvala, Zerion, Zerion's network, you know, everyone who's aligned on the mission. What we're building is a career path to support women throughout their journey. So it doesn't matter where you're coming from or where you're going, we can direct you to the various resources, communities, networks, education, and placement in jobs that will support you in that. And working with others, making sure that when we put you in a company, it's not toxic for you. Also, quite often, especially when you have a small team, you might be the only woman in the team. So then you have peer-to-peer mentoring support networks like a bigger pie to be able to give your professional yin and yang space some feminine energy, whilst in the company they have a chance to build more women. And I think that's really important as well, to retain women that are in, because if women are going into an environment that isn't conducive to them and have no other support to go in there, then they leave before they've had a chance to hire more women. So we'll be launching a 0 to CTO, 0 to CMO, women on boards, and a few more funders programs. So if anyone's interested in participating in it, supporting it, having access to the talent that comes out of it, and I would love to have a conversation with you, because we have a huge gap between demand and supply when it comes to talent. And if we can get women to take 30% of the blockchain engineering roles at an average of $120,000 a year salary, which is way below market price, we can bring in $60.5 billion of income to women every year. So when we talk about pay gaps, in this space, it's like, we're just not in that role. There's not a pay gap for you doing that job. There aren't enough women who are able to build in this space. So we definitely want to be able to support that. And the other thing that I want to say, that you touched on imposter syndrome, there is a conflict between confidence and competence. Neither gender has it right. So the research suggests that men tend to have more confidence in their competence, women tend to have more confidence in their confidence. Did I say that right?
Yes,
Yes.
be confident.
What that means in reality is a guy will go for a position 2 years before they're ready, and a woman will wait 2 years past her readiness. In a space like this, that's 4 years. And that's 4 years of less confident people building. So can we just get past that and get our hands up and get this? So in terms of your financial journey with you, can you each take your turn to describe what that's been like, because highs and lows?
Oh, just thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. I like to talk. It keeps me invigorated. My financial journey has been one of I have moments of growth, and then I sort of like, my ethics get in the way. It seems like the people who are willing to write the biggest checks also want you to like lobotomize yourself and I always find that like when I'm offered a raise, I'm like, can my whole team have a raise? Like, what about the other people that are just as good as me? And they're like, oh, actually, never mind. We're not going to give anyone a raise. That's too expensive. Let's just give ourselves a raise again, I'm so like intensely like focused on equity and inclusion, even before I knew what those words were and those concepts were, that I've had a hard time sort of looking out for myself and grabbing what is like possibly available to me and like really being like selfishly interested and like getting what I need. And then also like as a woman with less confidence, which I now have more confidence, but I've quite often underbid and worked at less than my value and been like, just thank you so much for having me, I'll just like, should I sweep everything after the panel? Like just trying to do extra because I just feel like I'm not like worthy of like being here and taking up space. And I'm just barely getting to the place now where I'm like, oh my God, I have to take up space. And I have to take the salary too, and I have to take money, and so my relationship to money is actually changing because I realize I have to now fundraise for an organization that's doing diversity and inclusion work. And now my like concept of smallness will impact others. So I have to raise my targets around self-worth, around what do I think the work is worth. And I have to say, well, tech projects get $10 billion, but we should get like 25,000, right? And then I have calls with Bridget, and she's like, you need 2 million. She's like, to get started, you need 2 million. Let's just break it down. I'll send you a spreadsheet. So yeah, my concept of money is like, you can tell it's zooming in, zooming out, zooming in, zooming out. Like I'm not very stable with it. And because of that, my earning has like slowly increased. Yeah, that's kind of how my concept of money and my path to financial freedom has been. I will say, yes, I have been passed over for promotions. Basically just passed over for like people like to give me lateral. They're like, hey, she was so effective in that role. She made that whole department work. Instead of giving her a raise and a promotion, let's just make her fix this other broken department and she'll get paid the same amount. Meanwhile, I'm going around to the hardest projects in the company. And some of them are failing, some of them are succeeding, but I'm taking on all the hardest projects and not actually ascending in like this. So this is another like loop that you might find yourself in if you're someone who's really compassionate, like women tend to be, where you like want to do the work that other people are ignoring, and therefore that work has not been valued, and therefore you can't prove the value, therefore you can't bill. So it's just like we're doing the important work, but we can't bill for it. A lot of it's invisible. Everyone just nodded. But I'm gonna pass it.
Yeah, I feel you. I wanted to offer a slightly different perspective on financial inclusion, and this is less to do with, you know, how much I earn, opportunities that we passed over. I work kind of at the center of decentralized finance, right? So just some context, my day-to-day job, I work with all the biggest protocols. We're liaising with teams all the time. We have whales who use our wallet, right, who will DM us about features and things like that. And so we have our eyes and hands in just every single part of what decentralized finance is, from the most complex yield strategies on Yearn, you know, where people are aping into projects promising 500% APY and losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in a matter of days. I mean, we've seen it all. And I've done this now for the last two years and a bit, and I've been thinking about this recently. Why am I not a millionaire yet? Like, I saw people's wallets go from $10,000 to $100 million in a matter of weeks in the DeFi summer of 2020. And I'm like, I understand all this stuff. I've experimented with this. I mean, I've made some money, not gotten burned, but why am I not the whale yet? You know, I have these questions because it's like when we talk about financial inclusion in Web3, we talk about, you know, opportunities to make money. I think it's really important that we be very clear about how people are making money, right? It's like, yes, across the board, there's more opportunity for financial gain, right? So something as simple as a DeFi savings account, you can earn 10% annually compared to your bank account. Bank of America gives 0.01%, and I'm not kidding. Like, the disparity is crazy. Everyone should get a DeFi savings account. But beyond that, that's not how people are making life-changing money. Right? We're talking about elevating people to financial freedom. Financial freedom is a very big number. And I think that sometimes when we have these conversations, we're being a little bit disingenuous around what it takes to make that level of money, because it takes a massive level of risk. It takes you already having $20,000 to put into the yield farming strategy to make the 1 million or the 2 million that we made. You're not going to do it with $500. You're not going to do it with 1,000. You might not even do it with 5,000. And I just want to make that really, really clear that there's a lot of opportunity, but unless you have the literacy, as it was talking about, it can be a very, very complex space to navigate. And so I feel like there is the educational aspect, but there's also the education can't just come from the communities that want to get access to these, you know, financial services and opportunities. I think of it as a two-sided thing, right? In terms of the products and the financial products that are available, what are they doing to make themselves more accessible to a wider audience, right? There is no ways I'm ever going to tell my college friends, go and use Yearn. Like, I'm just not going to do it. I would never do that to them. You know, I might tell them, hey, use Zerion, and you can track your portfolio very clearly and invest in Ethereum and these kinds of things. But I think that there needs to be a bridge between those two sides, because we can have dozens or hundreds of amazing educational communities in Web3, getting women to get a wallet for the first time, to invest in NFTs, to try out liquidity pools. We can't outsource that entire burden onto them. That isn't right, that isn't fair. And I also just don't think that it's a scalable model for opening up access. So I'm going to leave it at that and pass this on.
Nice.
So I have a very interesting relationship with money. I guess that stems from living without any for an extended period of time in the majority of my life. Working in the nonprofit world, like my life is rooted in creativity and community service. And I got a little, upset about money for a while because of what I saw it doing to people, and my family is from Afghanistan, where, women can't work right now, they can't even leave their homes. And I just thought, oh my God, what if I had a few $1 billion to just fly everybody out of there and just start a new Afghanistan? And then I realized how powerful money is. So I almost, in a way, had to surrender while continuing to, keep my moral ground and use money for good. So all the money that I'm raising at this conference is for homelessness. Will I be compensated for the work that the systems that I'm creating? Yes, I deserve to be compensated for work, as should everyone. But there's a difference between financial freedom and being rich. And I personally, I don't need to be rich. I just want to pay my bills, buy my dog treats, travel every few months. And I feel like Web3 offers that flexibility for people. DAOs offer that flexibility for people, where you don't have to work or be paid for work that occurs during 9 to 5, or for some people, hours much longer than that, 5 days out of the week. Like, what if we were paid for work that we chose to complete? And we could opt in and out of working when it worked for us. So I think a lot of elevating ourselves to financial freedom is defining what financial freedom means for us. Don't take someone else's definition of how much you should be earning. Plan out the life that would make you happiest and that would elevate other people in your community, and use that as your starting point. And I just have to say that a lot of this is really just believing in yourself. Be more confident than you think you should be, because you'll be amazed at the things that happen when you just speak your truth and someone listens.
I'll make it snappy then. I've got a couple things. I love what everybody's been saying. I think for me, money really represents freedom. If it all goes to hell, if shit hits the fan, if I've got a little nest egg, I'm gonna be fine. I was talking with my mom actually, who's wonderful, and she was telling me this story about her grandma. Sorry, my grandma. Because I just got engaged. It's very exciting. And my grandma, she grew up very poor in an immigrant community, and lost her mother very young. But one of the things that she found was really important was passing on jewelry that she had. And it was really important to get an engagement ring, because if you accidentally got pregnant and then the guy left, at least there's something to pawn. And I was just shocked. I've got a very J. Crew style, so sort of pearl earrings and stuff, but I had never thought of that as generational wealth. And the idea of building generational wealth and giving this sense of freedom and a little bit of a breath to people, that I care about kind of beyond me. When I think about the opportunities in Web3 and all of that, I really think this is our generation. I mean, this is such a huge seismic shift. I think this is a place for our generation to make truly impactful generational wealth. And I think the only way to do that is be bold. The second thing I want to talk about very briefly, in my Web2 days, I helped hundreds. I literally helped hundreds, perhaps even thousands of consultants set their own rate. Women consistently set the rate lower than men. Please stop doing that. Do some market research or come up with something and then go, you know what, I'll ask for a little bit more than that. And if you want to, fortune favors the bold. So if you're going to go for, some big investment opportunities, you need to spend to gain and have some risk tolerance, but have some understanding of what that means for you. So, fortune favors the bold, but I think building freedom is what's powerful there.
You've got a minute to win. Okay, I think the most toxic things I've experienced in my corporate life was when people tried to mentor me. I think sponsoring or investing is so much more powerful. So like when you see women ask, like needing help or so, maybe you can ask, how can I fund your project? Because that's actually how you build social capital. That's how you build capital and empower people to then become investors themselves. Because it's super important in Web3 because right now all the alpha is to be made. And every woman who's missing out on that means there's a gap that cannot be covered anymore. It's not only gender pay gap, it's actually wealth accumulation and wealth distribution. And it's actually getting much, much bigger, that gap, if women do not invest into Web3 projects, because that's where the money is made. And so there's any chance to encourage your friends to step in. If you are in a position where you can allocate your funds, you can become an activist, investor, in shaping the world that you want to see. And I think this is the value promise of Web3, it's the stakeholder economy. Everyone can become a stakeholder by supporting a project and owning a stake in it, not only just advising, consulting, and mentoring. This is all not really skin in the game. And a lot of women, if they work with you, support you, your project, maybe offer them, a share in your project so that you can close that gap that is else just widening at a rate that you can never close again.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to get this to 2.2% of all VC funding. Mixed teams get around 8 or 9%, and the rest of it goes to all male teams. So women will give you more profits. It makes no sense. So can we please choose that? There's so much that we've only scratched the surface on, but Panvala is organising a full day on inclusion in this space. Thank you everyone for showing up and for listening. Thank you so much for these incredible